back to the Mind, Body, and Tech. I'm Sana, and today we are talking with Laura Schaack, founder and CEO of Tattd. I hope I said it correctly.
Had
so,
it, yeah.
um, yeah, just a second. I have several voices in my head. It's okay. So, Laura has a background in international relations and has helped European tech companies scale in the US. Now, she's focused on making the tattoo world more seamless with her platform, Tattd. So, let's get started. Welcome and hello.
Hello, thank you so much.
So, are you ready for my questions?
I'm so ready. I'm very ready.
Okay, great. So let's start with your mind, of course, because we are the mind, body, and tech, right?
Mhm.
So, how do you keep your focus sharp while juggling that and your personal life, of course,
Mhm.
too?
So much. So I think is something that I was really bad at and am continuing to get better at, is whenever you are gonna take your time with your family or your time for yourself, time away, right? Really focus on that time. Like, because it's kind of a lose-lose if you're gonna take the time to relax, or devote time to your family, and the whole time your brain is in your company, right? You're not really devoting that time, you're not really relaxing, you're not doing anything productive for your company either, right? But it's of course so hard to train yourself to, okay, shut that off. You know what I mean? Shut off that faucet. You're going to deal with that client or that partner or whatever else you're going to deal with that tomorrow. So that way, if, once, I kind of got a little bit better at it, I actually was able to focus more at work, right? And actually more whenever I was focused on my personal life because I just made them purely for that and didn't kind of let those worlds bleed over as much.
Oh, nice one.
Mhm.
So you worked in high stress environment, right? And startups are always hectic and crazy. What's your strategy for avoiding burnout?
Yeah, so I think 2 things. I think the first thing is to set boundaries. And that was one that I kind of learned early on back when I was in, roles that I was working under people or, as a founder, I try to think to myself like, how would I feel with what my demands are right now as an employer? How would I feel being on the other receiving end of these things? But if you're not the one that can set that precedence, right? If you're not the founder and CEO, for example, really make a practice and set the boundary and the kind of precedence with whoever is employing you that yeah, I'm leaving at this time. I need to pick up my kid, I'm not going to answer emails on Sunday. I'm not going to do it, right? Whatever it is, setting those boundaries for yourself and making sure people know that and sticking to them, I think is super important. And then as a founder, when you think about burnout, because of course, as a founder, you're just working all the time. You're always at it. It's your baby. It's, what you're thinking about so often. I've definitely have times where I was extremely burnt out. I've definitely had that feeling. I've gotten accustomed to noticing it before it gets all the way there. So when I'm just starting to kind of lose steam on things, I can notice whenever I'm less excited to go to work or something like that. Then I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
these are indicators they're pre-burnout indicators, but I need to take a step back. Like, don't take a step back when you're already there. When you're already exhausted and just completely depleted. Take a step back before you get there, and that's how you can actually keep things lasting.
Yeah, for sure. But what would you say if the person already feel that it's too late?
Mhm. That's when it is time to take maybe a long step back, right? There are times that I took, 2, 3 weeks to really think about Tatted. And, I think you can get burnt out by a lot of different things in your life, right? And it's not only work things. And a lot of people actually do have those resources. So for me, it's being home with family, right? And so that's who I reach out to in times of burnout with, any sort of different category of my life. So, if you pay attention to the things that fuel you, and that can fill your cup back up, make sure to lean on those people or those things in that time.
Mm. Yeah, great. Okay, let's talk about your background, with your background in international relations, how has understanding these different cultures helped you in business?
Absolutely. So, whenever you're bridging cultures, it's a lot around empathy building, right? Understanding, like kind of, filling in gaps, right? Understanding where someone else is coming from, why they might think a certain way or say a certain thing. And that's so necessary anytime that you're building a company. So, the first way it's really useful is in kind of like design empathy, right? You want to empathize with your client or your customer. What are their pain points and what's truly going to alleviate those pain points? And that's, a huge thing when you talk about product design and building digital products, right? And then of course building a team. That's kind of the second way that it comes in handy, is having that empathy for other people. I'm happy to say that the Tattd team is super diverse when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, when it comes to socioeconomic background, all of the above. And so building that community together and, creating an environment where there's like-mindedness and empathy and openness and understanding, that's going to be the only way that you're going to have a diverse team that works really well together.
Nice one. Yeah, diversity is a key,
Mhm.
especially when you are too much focused on your product. You
Yeah.
need these diverse thoughts from your
Mhm.
team. So, you emphasize the importance of community, right? So, how does emotional intelligence, like, let's dive in, right, play into that?
Right, right. So I think emotional intelligence is a necessary aspect of empathy, right? So you're sitting across from someone, and let's say, they're having a bad day, or they're reacting, in an odd way, right? Like,
Mm,
why are they fighting back so much about this initiative or working with this person, or whatever it is? And I think people can get on the defense super quickly. I think emotional intelligence allows you to read what is happening in the other person's world a little bit.
mhm,
Emotional intelligence is saying, like, whenever I'm working with my co-founder, is saying, whenever he's frustrated, he kind of reacts like this. Or whenever he is in, a time that he's feeling super stressed, he kind of shuts down a little bit and he goes into just operator mode. But that doesn't mean that he's not, hearing what I'm saying, right? So kind of learning people's patterns and understanding the background of why they might be saying a certain thing or reacting in a certain way. We're always going to be handling conversations and moments and stressful times differently than the person across from us, right? And it's that emotional intelligence to say, okay, they're handling it like this. Usually handle it like this. Where do we come together on it?
yeah. It's like when you care, you need to learn other person
Yeah,
to it's
absolutely. And as a leader,
everything.
it's your job.
Yeah, reactions, like,
Mhm.
be very careful, because yeah, other any people have other stuff in their life other than work, right?
Mhm.
So absolutely, thank you so much. So, okay, let's talk decision making. So, can you share a decision making framework? Maybe
Mhm.
you have one you found your useful, like in your startup life and in your international work.
Mhm. Yeah, so a few things. First of all, we have at Tattd a written decision-making protocol. Um,
Wow.
and so that's been really important as you work with executive team members and co-founders, right? Or people that are, having, an even opinion being brought to the table. If you don't agree on something, you could be sitting in a conference room for hours, if you don't sit there and establish these as a company, these are our values on how we make decisions. A lot that's written in that is diversity of opinion, but it's also putting the end constituent first. So a
Mm,
lot of the times you find that if, rather than talking about assumptions about how you feel about how this person feels, let's talk about our audience. Let's talk about our client, our end user, who we're building this for. They are the ultimate decision maker, right? For us here at Tattd. They're like that's who we're targeting, right? That's our audience. That's why we're all here doing this. I didn't build a company just so that I like it, right? I want a lot of people to enjoy
for sure.
and, benefit from what we're doing. And so anytime that there's this has absolutely happened. Anytime that I'm like, I really think we should go right, and my co-founder says, I really think we should go left, we go, let's test it. And we go and we take that problem to our audience and we have a focus group of people and we say, what would you do about this? Or what would you react to with this? And actually take it back to them. There's another handy one called RICE scoring. RICE stands for reach, impact, confidence, and effort. And that is one we recently used it when we were thinking about new revenue streams to invest time in. And it's like, how impactful is this? What percentage of your audience does it actually address? Is it just a small, maybe fraction of them, or is it everybody? How much effort is this initiative going to take? You also think about, how does this actually fold into the larger vision of Tattd? Is this skewing us this way? Or, does this fall under our core vision of where we want to go? So the RICE score is a really fantastic way to think about all of these different, both more pragmatic things like effort, like how many hours, right? And also larger vision things when you're thinking about a decision, because you need to not only think practically, but also kind of, bigger picture when you're making decisions like that.
For sure. Yeah, nice one. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's now it's time for the body.
Wow.
Yeah. So, living in our artist community,
Mhm.
it must be inspiring, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, how does your environment shape your morning routine?
Yes. So I live in Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is one of the largest artist communities in the world, right? So I think it's number 2. I think it's Berlin and then Bushwick for the most artists residing per square foot, right? So I am constantly surrounded by, painters and photographers and graffiti artists and, all these different types of artists. This is my entire friend group. This is my entire community. Now, artists have a little bit of a different schedule than the rest of us 9 to 5ers. So actually my morning routine is mostly spent walking around my neighborhood. I always go out and I get, a cup of coffee down the street, and it's pretty quiet in my neighborhood during that time. The artist community starts at around noon. So early in the morning, I actually have the time in my environment. Bushwick also has the most graffiti art per square foot of anywhere in the world. So you're in a walk, and there's all these tours all the time. You're walking in an art gallery, essentially, whenever I walk outside my doorstep, which is so, so, so inspiring. So kind of every morning I have this serene outdoor art gallery type of walk to go and kind of set the precedence for my day. Remind me why I'm doing this, right? I love the artist community. It's, the community that I serve, that I feel closest to, that I feel the most inspired by, and kind of just brings you back home.
Wow. It's like, yeah, a museum for some sort.
It is. It is. It's
Nice,
beautiful.
nice one. But how about winter? Isn't it cold to like
It
walk
is.
with your coffee?
It is. My caffeine addiction keeps me going.
Yeah, it's nice. I totally get you.
Yeah. I know.
Okay, okay. Yeah, nice one. So, okay, as you are always on the go, like
Mm.
from Brooklyn to Manhattan, how do you maintain your energy levels? Except coffee, of course.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Um, so, not every person is as, outgoing as me. People bring me energy, and that's just how it's always been, right? I'm always been very, very social. After, a long gathering or dinner party, I feel more energized than anything. For some people, it depletes them. They need their alone time. That's not me, which is maybe why I thrive so much in New York City, right? I'm surrounded by people
Yeah.
all the time. So actually, it's funny being out in the world of New York, which would maybe be exhausting to many. That's what gives me the most life, right? And so as I'm going out, I'm going to different events or gallery openings or museums or hanging out with groups of friends. That is actually what gives me the energy to do all the rest of the stuff that I have to do within a day.
Wow. You like in your environment, because I am, yeah, I'm the person who stays at home and recharge, and because
Yes.
any type of activity with people, it's like I'm just drained.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, all right. So okay, any wellness practices that like help you stay grounded and in this crazy startup world?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I also a little bit more about my background. I come from a family of marathon runners, right? My
Mm,
mom's an Iron Woman. She does triathlons.
wow.
She's a wellness coach. She was a psychotherapist and psych wards for a long time. So, a lot about the physical and mental health is something that I just grew up with a huge affinity to and huge value of. Right. So, I also have ran the New York City Marathon. I also, stay very physically active. I think a lot about what I put into my body, and try to eat really, eat really good and eat organic and all of that good stuff. Now, everyone can whatever fuels the body best, your body best, that you feel best about is great. For me, paying close attention to my health and my routine is super, super important. So that's the other part of my morning routine is that I do a workout every day, and that is just necessary for me to feel good and healthy and strong. I mean, it's just a dose of serotonin to the brain, right? Every time. So, without that, I feel sluggish. I feel like I'm not performing my best, all of that. So, that's a very vital part of my routine.
Wow. Do you have like your training routine? What exactly you are doing when you
Yeah.
doing workout? I mean.
Yeah, so I have I have a virtual personal trainer. So I'm doing like a lot of weights. I have like kettlebells. I have all this equipment at my house. I'm still a big runner. Like I love any time that I can. Obviously, in the dead of winter, it is a little bit harder in New York if there's ice on the streets. But the majority of the time, at least twice a week in my routine, I'm getting out for a run, and that for me is also time to kind of quiet time. Right, that's my meditation. Like as I'm running, that's when, my brain can be calm because I can be a bit scatterbrained and moving quickly all the time. And running is where, things just get a little bit quieter and a little calmer. So that's really a necessary part of it as well.
Nice. Okay. By the way, many founders talking about running.
Hmm.
So this is some sort of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you, person who watching us, should try this one.
A good tip.
Okay. So how do you balance running a startup, which is hard,
Mhm.
and enjoying this vibrant life of New York?
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of trial and error for me. I think there was a time in Tattd that I poured myself so heavily into the business that I wasn't really doing anything else. I
Mm.
was working so much. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I wasn't seeing my friends as often. I wasn't dating anyone. I was like, I don't have time for that. All those other aspects of my life that I just kind of fully shut off. And eventually I realized that I became like someone that I didn't recognize. Like I wasn't fun anymore. Like, I like to think I'm kind of funny, but like I just these big pieces of my personality were kind of diluted and I didn't really feel like myself anymore. And I said, that is not okay. We've got to reel this back. We have to change this. What it does require is a different timeline and expectation for yourself and your business. I think a lot of the time there's messaging which I think is so toxic in the founder community, and it's like, it's staying up late nights and you got to make all the sacrifices you can and you got to be working all the time and it's a grind and just like all this like just very toxic intense culture around the type of work. You think that you're not doing a good job if you're not sitting there running a million miles an hour, never stopping, all of the above, right? And that is actually quite the opposite because you will not be the person that is best equipped to show up for your team, make those decisions. Like if you're, running on fumes, you're going to perform at your job poorly. You just are. But you do have to kind of accept that like, the development of Tatted, it will go slower than it would if I was working 100 hours a week, right? It just will. And so accepting a new pace to building your company and being like, this is, a marathon, not a sprint, to bring back the running bit, right? Like it is okay if I get, something done in 2 weeks that it could take me one if I really exhausted myself, but I'm going to make it take 2 weeks because that is the only way that I will last through this process, right? And not go crazy and just quit or whatever it is. So I think kind of rejecting that toxic work culture ideal that is pretty prevalent in the founder community is really part of it.
Hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I feel for myself like I can, if you listen into your body, you will
Hmm.
be fine. When you feel tired, you need
Right.
to stop. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna be like totally burned out.
Yeah.
And what good is it do for you, for your company? You just no, not
Right.
no person there. So it's
Can
just a
do it.
shadow. So
Yeah, you have to
absolutely.
see it as, like, high level counterproductive. I think that's, like, what I you're like, "This is actually destructive to my business. This is it's a fallacy that this is the best way to
Mm.
build my business. It's a fallacy that I'm at my best and most ideal with this work level," you know? So, just really picturing it tearing away at your company, and that's kind of, like, the mental space that you have to be in to make those hard decisions of, "Alright, I'm gonna close the laptop now," like, type of
Yeah,
thing.
I will do that now.
Yeah, you
By the
gotta.
way, I have a question. How you come up with this? I mean,
Mm,
with this hustle culture, and yeah, I totally understand that you need to hustle because there's competition. You need to
mhm,
build a business, right?
yeah,
And but how you actually come up? Maybe your mom helped you. I don't
mm.
know. Uh, with this balanced situation.
Yeah, so I reached a point, and this is probably a year and a half into starting Tattd, and there was just a week where and as it happens in startup industry where it feels like everything is going wrong, and then all you're hitting is no's, and nothing's working out, and all of the above. I had a pretty severe panic attack in a Dallas airport and was just at and which is an airport is a very public place, you know what I mean? And you also can't really leave it because your flight's down here, you know what I mean? So I sat there just absolutely bawling, crying, and it was quite the scene because I just started freaking out that it was all gonna end. That was a pretty extreme point for me, right? And that's where I was like, "I have got to figure out a different way to do this. Either I quit Tatted or I figure out a different way to have this dynamic and to move forward with this company. I cannot have my mental health that affected and have that sort of, like, cohesion in between." Because the thing is that there's always gonna be ups and downs in a startup, and they're pretty extreme ups and downs. So you're going like this all the time. You have a great day, you get a great email, this investor wants to move forward, whatever else. And then the next day, people are pulling out, and this partner has issues, and the app is crashing, and whatever else, right? But
Yeah.
if you experience with it, if you experience that extreme up and down with it, you will never be stable as a person. You'll never be able to have stable ground enough to make decisions and weather the storm. So I need it, and I realized that. I was like, "I can't have a panic attack every time Tatted's having a bad week," right? Type of thing. I need some separation from it. And so that experience kind of hitting that edge moment is what forced me to realize, "No, I have to be really, really serious about balance."
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let's continue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about New York.
Mhm.
I never been, but I
Oh,
really want to go. But you know, it's not easy now. Too many
right.
tabs open. So,
Of course.
but when I will go, what is your go-to spot in New York to relax and recharge?
Yes. So, I am a member of the Brooklyn Museum, actually, and it's one of the largest museums in New York, and it's right next to a huge park called Prospect Park out in Brooklyn. And usually, if it's your first time in New York, people spend a lot of time in Manhattan, and they go to the Met, and all that's really cool. I feel like the Brooklyn Museum, you see mostly New Yorkers there, which is cool, right? And then, of course, like, I grew up around art. I minored in art history history at NYU. It's always been, I wanted to be a curator for a little bit, and then I switched to international relations, which is like kind of a silly pivot. But it just being surrounded by the art world is something that I love and that brings me a lot of calm. And so, as a member, I'll go and I'll take a walk in the park, and there's beautiful botanical gardens as well in Prospect Park, and then just go to the Brooklyn Museum and see the latest exhibit.
Mm, nice one.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so it's time for tech now.
Do it.
So, what tech tools are like indispensable for you running TED? I always like I trying to say it right. Can
Tatted.
you Tattd? I,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It's hard for me. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
it's a quick sound, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what tech tools helping you to
Mhm.
run TED?
Yeah, so I'll call out 2 that, or maybe people might know about them, but it's not your typical, like, Slack or whatever else, but, there's a project management tool called ClickUp that
Mm,
is the most user-friendly project management tool I have ever seen, and it allows for a lot of easy collaboration, and just the UX UI is fantastic. I am someone that I still to this day have to have like some type of written paper stuff. Um, but so I was like, I'm a hard person to move on to for just for project management stuff onto digital platform. Ironically, this one I really, really like. So ClickUp is great for project management. Singular is one for analytics that is really, really fantastic, really easy. I hate Google Analytics personally. I think it's really ugly. It's really hard to work with. Whatever else, Singular is again fantastic UX UI, and streamlines everything, and just again takes the painfulness out of looking at analytics.
nice. Okay, so um, how has your experience in scaling European tech companies influenced TED?
Yes, so definitely in a big way. So whenever I first started working with European startups, it was a firm that scaled already successful European companies into the US market. And so a lot of what I was looking at was go to market strategy for them in the US. So I'm looking at what's been successful for them over there. What are their competitive landscape over there compared to here in the United States? Are there any sort of cultural, like from a marketing messaging perspective, is there any cultural shifts that we need to make over here in the US? I don't know if this is something you've already kind of talked about or thought about, but in the US, you're a little bit more forthcoming about your successes, right? And it's super appropriate to say, we're the best at this. We're better than the competition. Now, over in Europe, that's not really appropriate. And that's, seen as being like a braggart. And,
Yeah.
like humility is actually a lot more valued over there, to be honest. So, when you're thinking about a cultural shift from over in the EU versus the US, you think about these things and you think about how you're going to talk to your client, how you're going to make that sale, and you have to take on a slightly different culture. So I essentially had studied and made recommendations on slight shifts for people to thrive in a new environment. Now, that is, first of all, super heavy empathy building, but also forced me to have to look at certain scenarios and what is best for that exact environment. Now, that's super relevant scaling Tattd, right? Since we have really ambitious plans that we want to scale actually the opposite direction over to Europe super soon, but also just looking at different communities within the tattoo community, right? So looking at the client space, looking at urban spaces versus more rural spaces, looking at the super tattooed individual versus like the newbie who, is a little bit more scared, and, they don't want to see picture, like in our marketing, we think about that. They don't want to see pictures of a crazy, heavily tattooed, Harley Davidson riding dude. That's scary to them. They want to see a cool, trendy person like themselves with maybe just one tattoo, so it's very inviting and very, natural for them. So really thinking about the segmentation of how to sort of slightly shift and slightly alter the business to be exactly form fit as much as possible to who is sitting across from you is what I kind of was able to transfer over with that experience.
Hmm. Wow. That nice one about segmentation and
Mhm.
like less and more tattooed
Yeah,
guys and
yeah.
girls. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, how about this emerging tech trends?
Mhm.
Maybe like there is something that you think can benefit tattoo industry?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, so the thing about the tattoo industry is that any tech will benefit it because it is so in the dark ages. It is like it is pen and paper, it is just any tech, guys. But we are really thinking about because of course, my background is the innovative tech side of things. So I get really excited about it. So I want to give them, the tools that they don't have and then some, which does include a lot of tech trends like, I know we're talking about AI all day, all night, but there is great applications for it also in the tattoo space, right? When you're thinking about the categorization for tattoos, generative AI, actually, whenever you're thinking about a tattooed concept, right? So right now we're already building a mechanism to where you could essentially, as you add something into Chat GPT, add in a tattoo image so that it is most relevant to what you're actually looking for. And as a user, you can kind of play with the image and iterate on it until you
Mm,
see exactly what you want in front of you and can send that to a tattoo artist, for example, right? So really refining the process and solving for things that, maybe isn't the number one pain point, but that take a long time and that there is, some like muddiness in, if that makes sense. The one thing that I kind of keep in the back of my mind, however, especially when it comes to AI being in everyone's pitch deck nowadays. Um, Use the tool. Don't fall into the trap of making it the cornerstone of your business if it's not relevant. So there are definitely usages and something I'm working on utilizing AI and utilizing augmented reality as well. Um, there were some tattoo companies that failed by making that the end all be all, right? Like, so there was a tattoo company that they only did augmented reality to try on tattoos. And they couldn't really monetize that because that's an add-on feature, not the core business feature, right? The core business feature needs to solve the absolute biggest pain point, right? Right now, that's what we're solving at Tattd is the interconnectedness of the community, right? And how desperate it is and how difficult it is for clients to find artists and for artists to get clientele, right? So that's a big, big problem, not just like I don't, it's hard for me to visualize this tattoo on my body. So just I guess whenever I'm talking to founders, I'm kind of always a little bit wary of making that the first page on your slide deck and making that just the absolute number one thing that you think about at your company. And I know AI is very exciting and we're not using it, but we can't fully shift the entire focus of the core of our company around trends because trends are exactly that word. It's a trend, right? They shift, they change.
yeah, absolutely makes sense. So I'm here with
Yeah.
you. Um, okay. Mm, Next one. How do you keep
Got it.
tattooed? Oh my god, I'm so I'm so weird.
No worries, no worries.
So how you keep it agile and like because you are in this ever changing industry and tech landscape, how you are agile now?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think 2 things with that. And for a lot of founders, I think it's pretty natural to keep up with the tech trends because it's what I love to hear about. It's what I love to talk about. And I'm on the newsletters and I'm at the conferences. And my co-founder and CTO obviously loves to talk about the geeky new tech stuff on the horizon, right? So this is already something that you're always going to be paying attention to just because it's exciting to hear about. So that's one thing. The other thing around being agile, constantly having your finger to the pulse of your community and of the person you're serving, right? Your client or whoever you're selling to, whatever it is, whoever you're building this company for, I mean, because essentially we did long discovery on this persona type, if you will, 3 years ago. But if we just take that study that we did 3 years ago and we try to solve for it today, there's going to be slight changes. Like there's going to be changes in the market. I can tell you right now in the tattoo industry, there's a huge issue with people coming in from overseas and changing the price structure that they can, in New York City, there'll be, artists coming over from different countries that have lower price points, which is making it difficult for so there's always going to be shifting concerns within your community. So you can't just have done a study one time on who they are and how the industry operates and have that set in stone, right? So keeping your finger to the pulse of not only tech trends but also keeping your finger to the pulse of your specific market.
Yeah. Uh, how about some tech hiccups you experienced Can you share some interesting stories?
Yeah. So, kind of at the beginning, at the very beginning, when you're building a double-sided marketplace, kind of the quintessential issue is building up two sides at the same time, right? So, as a tattoo artist, if I got on board and I never get a single message from a client, I'm going to say this app doesn't work. As a client, if I get on the Tattd app and I see two artists listed in my entire city, I'm going to say this app doesn't work. I'm going to throw it away, right? So you have to kind of, build up one side at the very least and then get the other one on board, right? You kind of have to do this kind of, just double build, right? I feel like I'm building two companies at the same time all the time. Oh, they have different marketing channels, they have different messaging, they have different needs, like all of the above. So what we did was we built a scraping algorithm as we realized this early on and we got the tech built and we were like, oh my gosh, no one's on this app. So we're like, okay. So I had my engineers build a data scraping algorithm and they scraped all of Instagram and Facebook and Yelp. And I said all of these different criteria. And then I trained a data cleansing team to go through every profile and ensure that it was in fact a legitimate tattoo artist. And then we put all of them on the platform and then slowly but surely contacted them in order to onboard them to claim their profile. Yelp was built the same way, in order to claim their profile. But then there was an automation in the back end that if as a client, if I messaged an artist that was not yet onboarded, I, as the founder, would immediately get an email and I would reach out to that tattooer and say, hey, you have a client at your doorstep right now. Download Tattd, get on board. And we had actually 100% success rate with that because as we're trying to get, an artist on board, we're not saying we will get you a client. We're saying we have a client for you, right now, today. Download the app. You'll see the message, type of thing. So that was kind of like a jerry-rigged way that we had to react and build some, tech and a tech process to address, an issue that on the onset I didn't really realize, but then as we were about to launch, I was like, oh my gosh. So you have to get scrappy and pivot really quickly.
Yeah, nice one. Okay, so let's talk about your goals and everything around it. Can you share with us the most rewarding milestone that you've hit?
Oh, there's so many. I think having this new app out. So essentially, we built the beta version and we did tons of testing and then raised some money and then rebuilt the app to be scalable, to have a better UX UI, all of the above, right? Um, it was around the time that the first app came out that COVID also happened. So that slowed the process of being able to get funding and get this new app out pretty significantly. And so I, as someone that worked with tech all day, all night, right? I worked at as a VP at app development firms in New York City for a long time, and we were working with Citi and Pepsi and IBM and all these big names with big budgets and perfectly seamless apps. So, whenever we were working on the kind of V1, the version one of Tatted, the whole time, every time I would open it, I would go, oh, you're like, oh no, like this is so rough. I hate looking at this, and you're frustrated for so long with it, but you have to kind of hobble along with the first versions of the app, and especially as you're getting funding. I stared at that for so long, ready for a new version. It finally came out 2 months ago. And so seeing an app that I am proud of that kind of justifies all of the work that I've put into it is a really beautiful moment for me.
Congrats. This is like a big milestone.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, how do you set and measure goals for yourself and for Tata?
Mhm.
Okay.
That is
given its given its unique community focus.
Yes, absolutely. So I think tapping into the community is a huge part of our growth and structure in general as a company, right? Whenever we're thinking about goals for the business, we rely on Google's structure, OKRs, if you're familiar with that structure, but objectives and key results, right? And I think the beauty of that structure is that it takes in the larger vision and the bigger picture and also the minute actionability of it. This is something that I've had a lot of conversations about as I'm hiring executive team members, and as I think back on my experience. So before Tattd, I was the first employee at a number of different startups. So I watched founders kind of do their thing for years and years and years, and obviously, had some learnings, had some things that, tools that I put in my pocket, had some things that, became a cautionary tale type of thing. And it's really kind of difficult to balance vision and execution. And if you're someone that can do both, that is really the beauty. So whenever you're setting goals, it can't just be great, high level and inspirational and, go on a stage and you're Gary Vee and that's fantastic, right? That is awesome. If unless you can execute on the goals, it's absolutely useless. And on the same other, I guess chapter or other side of it is like if you can only execute, if all you can do is like workhorse through certain things and using your project management tool, but you don't really have the vision of how that fits into the larger picture of what you want to accomplish, that's also not going to work, right? um I think when it comes to the larger vision side of things, so that balance, and then when it comes to the larger vision side of things, I think involving leaders in the industry, which then this comes back to the community piece of things. Um, we have been out to, let's see, we're in LA, we're in Salt Lake City, we're going to Richmond next month. And all of this is to go to the largest conventions in the tattoo industry and meet with industry leaders that have been working with this community for over a decade, right? And been a member of this community for their entire lives. And these guys are in their 50s and 60s and, they live and breathe the tattoo community, and bringing them into Tattd and, exposing what we're doing and saying, what is your feedback? Does this work? How can we leverage your community? How can we, create a partnership that's really beneficial for both sides of things is kind of like, a new thing that we've introduced in the last year as we've just had the capacity to do that. It's actually changed our growth objectives and our roadmap for the next 2 years pretty significantly after just discovering even more details about how this industry operates and what they need truly, and what would be most beneficial versus only a little bit beneficial, right? Just because I think from a client standpoint, really first and foremost, and of course we do discovery on either side of things, but I'm not a tattoo artist. A lot of people think that I am, but I really come more from the client side. So you have to understand all of these different viewpoints at the same time to really make the best decision for the community as a whole.
Mm, yeah, great. Maybe you can share an example where you had to shift your goals, like change, tweak,
Mhm.
probably because you're a startup founder, you did it a few times.
Yeah. Oh, so many. Yeah, I can definitely share a recent one. So as we are stabilizing the platform that connects clients and tattoo artists, we are already doing R&D on the platform that is studio and artist facing. Now, because I'm more familiar with things from an operational perspective, I had already kind of mapped out a product that takes care of, scheduling and inventory management and, all of the communications, like all of the above, right? Anything that as a client I can imagine being a pain point as an artist. Something that I completely overlooked is that these artists are exactly that, they're artists. They're 1099, they're contractors. They don't have health insurance. Right? They need business insurance. They have to pay a lot of money out of pocket. These are again artist types. And so figuring out, how to do their taxes at the end of the year and keeping track of all of their finances. These are huge pain because they essentially operate as a singular person business. And like I can, let me started on right brain versus left brain when it comes to working with artists as business people, right? This was a huge gap in what we are offering to them that we very, very quickly pivoted to create a structure around, right? So that's what we're looking at for 2024 is, not only can we work on the business logistics for them, but the larger suite of business services of PEO or POE, whatever it is, services that we can offer to people. So that was a great example of a discovery that we made in the last little bit of time.
Mm, good. Okay, so probably you have some piece of advice for someone looking to thrive in a startup.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think because it's slightly different as a founder versus as, someone who's employed there, right? Um, I think if you're looking to found your own business, I need you to think about it as a larger picture. I'm going to be dedicating my life to this for maybe 10 years, right? I think because of all the, LinkedIn and all of the above, you just see the cool milestones of I just raised 3.5 million and, my business got acquired and that's great. That's so exciting, but somehow you continue to only think that you're as successful as you hit these milestones and all that you have in your brain is this milestone ahead of you rather than just letting yourself kind of like settle into the journey of it, right? And there's a lot of different ways that you can structure, your startup milestones. You don't have to raise venture capital, right? Like you don't have to IPO. There's a lot of different ways that, your business can thrive and be really successful and really rewarding. So kind of not having those specific kind of like very flashy LinkedIn update style milestones being the only thing in your head as you become a founder, because also you will get really anxious to not have been acquired yet in the first 3 to 5 years or whatever. You really have to like that allows you stamina if you don't just focus on those achievements as a founder. And then as someone that's a part of it, I think it's kind of similar to what I was talking about before with the ups and downs, right? Because as a first employer, even if you're in the first 10 employees, if you're not accustomed to a startup environment, you might not be accustomed to all of the very intensive ups and downs. And working with people, meaning like usually the founders that are very emotional about this, right? Like it's a big deal to them. This is their baby. They're going to feel those ups and downs, It's going to be a different environment than a CEO of, a 500-person company that kind of has a pretty big barrier between him and the life of the company, like a lot more than a founder does. So kind of naturally that environment is going to be a lot more tumultuous like that. So I think equally as an employee, you have to build that stability, that personal stability, even with all of the different, craziness and the ups and the downs and the pain points and the wins and the losses and all of that. Just that personal stability is something that you need to build.
Yeah. Um, what is success looks like for you?
Gosh, so I think at one point I mean, and I guess this kind of makes sense. I really wanted to hit those achievements that really great Series A round and, looking at potential acquirers and all the above. And somehow I didn't feel like I was successful unless I had those, kind of very tangible bullet points that from my environment and what I saw, in my community, that's what success means and looks like. I've kind of turned a lot more inward in recent years, and it's been really, really helpful to me to where as Tattd gets used, as it permeates the community, as I make change, which is this is the vision. It's to make change in how this community operates. As I hear people actually, utilizing it on their day-to-day basis and talking about the benefits of it, the more traction we get, I'm like, wow, I am actually accomplishing this vision of mine. I'm actually making a change in how this industry functions. Like that is so cool. So that is actually the larger benefit for me is really seeing it integrate into the daily lives of tattooed people.
Mm, great. Okay, what is your next big leap for you and for Tata?
Yes, absolutely. So, there are because the way that, Tatted is sort of structured or the vision of it, it's not just one platform. It is a suite of different platforms that all come together to power the tattoo industry from A to Z. So it's a platform that's client facing, it's a platform that's artist facing or studio facing, right? And so it's all and some are going to be web focused and some are going to be mobile focused, right? And they're all going to speak together so that again, it's automated all the way through from the moment someone thinks about maybe getting a tattoo to the execution side to getting the aftercare for it, right? All of the above, all of these different moments. Um, in the next year, in 2024, we're looking at our first expansion into an additional platform in this suite of systems. We've been working on the first one for a very long time, and now we finally have the stability in that and the traction, the team to open up a second and a third platform that will again all integrate together.
Mm, ecosystem, right?
Mhm, exactly.
Yeah. I think investors so like fond of it
Yes,
when you
yeah.
have such ecosystem. Thank you so so much for this sincere talk. You absolute delight. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and I wish all you luck and success and next milestones. So they should come faster to you and without any signs of burnout.
Yeah, exactly, that's the goal.
That's
Wonderful.
so, so important. It's crucial. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's watching. And have a great day, guys.